Hey folks, with us today is Sondre Rasch, CEO of SafetyWing. Super happy to have you.
Great to be here, Nicholas.
Awesome. So I think one company, like now you know it from two companies, basically SafetyWing, which is at least in the remote freelancer space, quite big already, and then Superside as well. I think I would love to dive right into what SafetyWing actually does for its customers in terms of what problem it solves.
Yeah. So SafetyWing, right now, the product we offer is nomad insurance and remote health. So it's both. Nomad insurance is health and travel medical insurance for digital nomads, people who work online and live abroad. And remote health insurance for remote teams that works anywhere in the world. So what problems does this solve? Well, for nomads, it's the possibility to have they live abroad, so that it's not doesn't work with just travel insurance. They need something they can have for months and months or years and years on a subscription. And for remote health, you have companies who hire remotely, so they have often typical employees and contractors in many countries, and so you want to be able to offer benefits all the same for all of them. And now you can do that with remote health.
So you're kind of split between like a more like a D2C directly to like the remotes for the benefits, and then for the health it's more like a B2B play. Did you initially start out that way, or how did you begin this whole journey?
No, we didn't. So I should say we start out, and we still are on the plan to make a global social safety net and a country on the internet. So, which means we want to make all the benefits, health, retirement, income protection, available as a membership. But concerning if we were selling only to consumers or companies, we started out with consumers. We didn't think we would sell to companies. And but then we just kept getting asked it all the time. So this was actually something we changed a little bit in. Every day we would get some more companies asking if they could buy it for their employees. So we understood that that was also an issue. It's a bit of a separate issue, right? So a remote team has employed, like SafetyWing right now. We have 150 plus team members in 60 different countries, and as a company, you want to offer benefits and stuff. But yeah, that just wasn't available before. And it certainly wasn't available to offer the same to everyone. But now you can. So yeah, that was a learning after the start.
Yeah. And so you started out in 2017 with then basically the consumer version. At what point did you make the switch to also go the B2B route?
We started right after we launched, actually, to figure out, because we discovered this almost immediately. We didn't see this as like a big pivot, by the way. We just thought, it would be nice if there was also a dashboard so companies could add members. So at the time, strategically, we saw it as a bit of a minor feature, although I realized later that it is a big change because you have to... These two different users, a company and a consumer, are different in how you market to them. But so we started that pretty shortly thereafter, although we launched it in 2020. March 3rd, 2020, we launched remote health as well as the company dashboard.
God, that's quite close to COVID. So how was the whole COVID situation for you? Because I mean, you're like directly in touch with people's like health in a way. So how was COVID for you as a company?
COVID for us was quite an adventure. It was two different things happen at the same time. So to start with the sort of challenging part. So the challenging part was the only product we had customers on at the time was nomad insurance. Nomad insurance is insurance for digital nomads. And if you can recall, travel was basically made illegal for a while, and so that was a real challenge for that product. And we also had a series of moral dilemmas. So I'll give one quick one. We covered evacuation, and that evacuation was triggered if a travel warning was put on a country. And in March 2020, a travel warning was put by this US agency for the whole world, which meant every single one of our customers qualified for evacuation. And if they took that, one, that would be expensive, and two, they would also run out of, they would not be a customer anymore because it only works, as a product only works when you're abroad. But the moral dilemma was nobody knew about this coverage. It was a bit obscure. So we had the option of like telling people, and we had this internal discussion about it. And we ended up, it's a very sort of value-based discussion where we ended up saying, well, we have to do it to live up to this aim for the ideal value and stuff. So, in particular by my co-founder, Sarah. And so we announced it, and we sort of like 2 weeks till the evacuation thing runs out, 1 week, 24 hours, and we were up all night on customer service. And a third of our customers did evacuate. There was an existential risk. But we didn't die. And come August, we start to reap the benefit of this way of acting throughout COVID a lot, because people noticed that how we communicated. 20 of the top 40 ambassadors for World Nomads, which was sort of like a competitor in that part of the product at the time, switched to us during the summer months. And from August to December, we grew at like 300%, even if the market was flat. So it was a happy ending, but very like dramatic. And okay, so that's one. Number two happened at the same time and is a completely different story, which is about remote work. So remote, in March 3rd, 2020, we launched this remote health insurance for remote teams. And we had the whole team here in San Francisco for a launch event where I'm currently sitting. We launched that out of this place called Parisoma, a co-working space that was later shut down during COVID. 200 people were at the launch event. One of the slides on the launch event said, in 10 years, most companies will be remote. And then the next weekend, all companies were remote. So that happened. And we were like, not perfectly positioned for that hype, but it certainly accelerated the advent of remote work by several years. It was a massive demand for this product. And we were not really ready for it. So it's like, throughout that time, the whole almost company was about just meeting the demand and trying to onboard customers for that product. And so much was manual, because we thought it was only going to be like in a beta customer trial phase for like 6 to 12 months. It wasn't ready to be scaled. So it was this super hectic period. So that's how COVID was like for us.
I mean, that's quite all right. How did you, like, asking you as like the human basically, how did you emotionally cope with that? Because from the outside, it sounds crazy stressful. And then especially this mix of up and down is like not easy to handle as a founder.
Yeah. How did I cope with that? I went for a lot of walks. Especially there's a rooftop terrace in this house, the SafetyWing house. So, I used to have a very nice exercise thing for an hour or so on the rooftop while listening to audiobooks. I remember that time up there on the roof was very helpful to think this through. But frankly, it wasn't that bad. It was kind of, because when things get bad enough, you kind of switch into different gear. So like within normal life, you're like normal stressful. And then like something like that sounds terribly stressful. But there's like a line, and if you pass that line, it's like it's like things are so beyond normal that you're entering into a different thing, and it feels much better actually. So that was what that was like. I mean, it was just such a chaotic kind of gung-ho situation, like with max uncertainty, because of course this was also the beginning of COVID. I don't know if you remember, but like it was so uncertain with what would happen with the whole world. Much less our company. So it more had this feeling of this sort of Mad Max kind of road. You've seen Mad Max Fury Road, Like it felt like being more in one of those cars, than just being in normal life and being stressed out. It wasn't, so it was kind of fun actually.
This episode is brought to you by ReactSquad.io, the boutique React agency for SaaS startups. If your front-end team is overwhelmed and you need more hands on deck, go to ReactSquad.io and get a React.js developer embedded in your team in less than 7 days. Coming back to right now we have like June 23, so it's 2023, so it's like quite a weird situation, like the tech ecosystem, because in a way this AI hype is like going strong, everything's like looking nice on the outside, but also like companies are dying left and right, people run out of money, people's stock options are worthless, so it's like not the funnest of times basically. So as a CEO of like a 150-person company, right, in like still the center of tech SF, how do you manage the current times?
Well, in which way are you thinking?
I mean, mostly in terms of both as a VC backed fund, like in terms of like investor outlook. I mean, what like basically like shifting goals around, but also like, did you need to like cut burn, or how you manage it like on the strategic level, basically?
Yeah. I guess the listeners here are mostly startup people, right? So, but if not, I'll explain briefly. Like fundraisers you do typically under normal times. Seed, Series A, B, C, D. Well, actually, right now it's like angel round, seed, two rounds before Series A typically. But typically there's like a year and a half between each of those. And we kept on that, right? So we had like kind of angel round and Y Combinator in 2018, seed round 2019, Series A 2020, Series B spring 2022. So under normal circumstances, by the end of this year, we would be looking at fundraising again. But as there's basically a bit of a downturn, well, I would say there is a bit of a downturn in the economy, but particularly in tech, startups, and VC. So basically anyone who doesn't have to fundraise or who aren't doing some kind of company which stumbled on a kind of AI explosion, they're not fundraising now, including us, because it's just a super bad time to do that. Like, everyone I talk to is fundraising hate it right now. So I mean, we discovered this happening last spring. We raised our Series B at a great timing. And by the time summer come, we were realizing we were in a different environment and that we probably should aim at being able to. So we kind of had a more frugal path. We didn't have to do any like massive kind of layoffs or cut that sort, but we did change our path to invest much less and be frugal. So to essentially let our revenue catch up with the burn. And we are now on like a path to break even. We're not quite there yet, but like we're on a path. So we can raise whenever we want to. So that was one thing we did, and the people who didn't do that are in trouble. So that's one thing. Another thing, as of August last year, and I'm guessing a lot of people in SaaS had this, but like our customers are startups. So we were affected in two ways. One is other companies, startups did have layoffs, right? So we had worse net retention. I'm seeing that falling, by the way, as of like this quarter. It started to peak. It peaked in last quarter, but that's kind of been gradually going up since last spring, and then it peaked last quarter. So that's one way we were affected. And then also as of August last year, we started seeing sales cycles going up. But all things considered, we're in good shape, right? The 2022 versus 2021 was like 2x growth, which isn't, as much as we would have hoped, but it still is completely fine. At our level, we have like, over 25 million in top line. So that's how we are dealing with it. Like we're being frugal, so we can completely choose when we want to fundraise, when the market is right. And we're going slower than we would have, but still at like kind of like startup trajectory.
Makes a ton of sense. And I would love to switch gears a bit because I stalked you a bit on SimilarWeb, as one does. And it's like around 500K in traffic, of course, like SimilarWeb, so who knows? But what's your main acquisition channel, or like how do you approach growth from like a marketing perspective?
The way I approach growth can be summed up in the line, make something people want and then tell them about it. That's one thing I come to believe in a lot. That's a Paul Graham line. And then the other thing is this idea about mimetic desire. Like, why do people want things? One reason is they look at what other people want and they just copy that. So those two insights, I think, can be summed up in a marketing strategy that starts with making, a unique product of high quality before we try to scale it. And I would, for my own purposes, for all practical purposes, I would define, product market fit is usually defined as like the runaway growth situation, which I have been into, but I don't think that's a useful definition. That comes and goes. I think the useful definition is when customers are recommending your product to their friends spontaneously. That is a real normative, like important change in a company, because that's when I would say your product works. People would only recommend it to a friend if it worked. And so that's the time when you can start investing in growth. And we did that in SafetyWing's history. This is something, everything I'm saying now, by the way, is like things I've learned the hard way by doing it wrong over and over again until I finally gave up. This is not something I came to easily. So, and then I would say, the implementation of the kind of mimetic desire as a growth strategy is basically influencer. So we have an ambassador program for Nomad Insurance. Influencers, bloggers, YouTubers recommending our product authentically, either via sponsorships and such. So we don't do ads, we don't do performance ads. So that's on consumer. So today, 2/3 word of mouth, 1/3 via ambassador program. That's our growth.
Do you measure that by like an opt-in form when people join, or how do you, like, on the super tactical level for a founder out there, how should they know, or how should they track how good they are in terms of word of mouth? Because in a way you need to measure it before you can like make it better.
It is really hard to measure word of mouth, but the way you do it is, you ask, what did you hear about it? Because of course the way this will show up is, it's not like you can look at Google Analytics and see what's word of mouth. You will have some from direct, you will have some from search, you will have some from. But in our case, right, we will know because we're not doing anything else. But if you're doing it, you can be really confused by seeing that 1/3 of your traffic comes from social and 1/3 from search. So we know we're not spending any money on that or posting anything there. So we are well aware that that is a version of word of mouth. It's just that people are, basically searching for the name of the company or clicking through. That's one version. And from social, people discuss the company in groups. People post things to channel. People post things to Messenger. So yeah, the way you figure that out is ask, where did you hear about us? The way people will answer that, people are not going to answer, heard about it from a friend, by the way. So you have to read the results with a bit of a wide thing. Like people, might say they heard about it from Reddit, but of course we know, knowing every single post about it on Reddit, that it's not because we are advertised on Reddit or something like that. It's because there are digital nomad groups on Reddit, right, where they're discussing. So this is kind of how digital word of mouth works, right? People talking about it in communities and forums. So yeah. So anyway, that's the brief answer.
And then on another, like on a tactical level, again, because like I just try to, especially on the growth things, I think the tactical things actually help. So on the influencer side, do you manage them in-house? Do you have is there a specific agency you're working with? Or because I could imagine that the breadth of influencers is quite big and it's likely not like one or two huge influencers, or like how do you manage that on like an operational level, basically?
Yeah. We I didn't use any of the tools. Still don't actually. So I mean, the way we did it, we first built like a very light tracking link thing. We just gave that manually. We would sometimes post newsletters, basically affiliate, but it's also done by sponsorships, right? So we would have search in relevant keywords, reach out to top blogs, ask if they wanted to review or add us a review or write about us. And then we would have like sponsorships like $100 or a few $100, $500. In some cases, even big sponsorships in a couple of cases. And then they would also use the tracking link, but they would not be motivated by the tracking link in the beginning, of course, because we don't, like, there's no history reason they would think that would work. But the affiliate program and stuff like that, it's basically, it's kind of like SEO, like it's just filled up by hoaxsters. So that's why it doesn't work. So works much better to just reach out yourself to people, like people that you would, to someone you yourself would. And today this is like a whole program. So there's like ambassador program, there's like an outreach team, there's a community team. We have a community of ambassadors. They run regular campaigns every month. There's like even gatherings for ambassadors. And we made this like amazing user experience for ambassadors where you can sign up. There's a referral program for ambassadors that actually works. So we get kind of word of mouth on the ambassadors. There is also this super nice graphs and dashboard. Yeah, so now we've built out a ton, but of course, we weren't there in the beginning.
For founders who are looking to implement that, is there like one or two specific things where you would say, damn, it would have been so much better if we would have done that from day one? Just like any learnings on the investor program?
Thing is, we're doing it now similar to where we do day one, but along the way, we did it super different. So we've made the massive mistakes in the middle, not the beginning, which sounds so counterintuitive. But and I can just go through those briefly. So there are many things that people think about an ambassador program that are wrong, but that are very plausible sounding. And it's like I almost am not able to convince people here, which is hence why we tried it. So I'll give you a couple of them. So for example, in the beginning, like today, we would reach out to what we saw to be like good bloggers or YouTubers who we thought are good quality, offer some kind of sponsorship, bring them on the thing. And we would urge them to just include us in some normal content they were making. Like their own tone of voice, like, because it has to be authentic, otherwise it doesn't work for this purpose, which is how we use it. We're not using it as an ad, but as a recommendation. And what is the thing that is tempting to do that we tried for like a couple of years in the middle that doesn't work? It's basically anything that makes it kind of like an ad. So for example, having a widget. So you think along the way like, oh yeah, that's like a huge win. Like they ask for it, blah, blah, blah. And then turns out, no, that actually removes the value of it because people see it as an ad. So they don't see the recommendation as authentic. And so they don't trust it. That's one. Another one is, writing almost the articles, making the content for the influencer. Oh yeah, that will help them finally get this written. No, because then it's not authentic, which is back to the same thing. It doesn't work as a recommendation, which is the purpose of it. The audience recognizes that this is not the kind of stuff they're normally viewing from this YouTube creator, obviously. So that's another one. The worst one, oh my gosh. This one we have made and then we remade it after we learned it once, which is so painful. And that's the following. You get a bunch of ambassadors in and then you look at the sales list and then you notice inevitably that the top ambassadors make most of the sales, right? Okay, so here's the logical thing that you will think is plausible. Let's just focus on those top ones. Let's only get big ones in. Okay, it's so plausible, right? Like just saying it now, like I'm like, how can that possibly not be the case? Well, the thing is, that's a different strategy that basically flatlines growth. We've seen it happen twice. I think that the best analogy I've come across is like baseball. It's kind of like saying, I will only hit home runs. So if you only hit home runs, what you end up doing is you just swing much less, and you don't necessarily hit more home runs even. You're just swinging much less. And you don't know actually which one is going to be the home run. You can have of course, you can improve your target audience a little bit, but you can do that while still swinging, right? You can still improve your swing. So if you think I'm only going to swing if I know it's a home run, is a recipe for just swinging less times, getting less hits, including less home runs, less of everything. So it's a strategy to flatline that sounds like the most correct strategy ever. Such a counterintuitive one. So that's one path we've gone down, and then return 2 times. That's another one. You just want to have large volume, treat it like a funnel that doesn't end at the point where the influencer signs up or even posts the content, but as a funnel that goes even further than that, where it's not gonna, there's not going to be 100% hit rate. You just go through the funnel, and you try to improve every step of the funnel. But you got to keep the top line filled up. You can't say we're only going to have the people who go through 100% through the funnel.
I think that it was super valuable and a great point to wrap up. Sondre, that was a really insightful interview. Thanks a ton for providing all of those tactics.
Thank you, Nicholas. Great to be here.
If you like this episode, you will love our newsletter, The SaaS Operator by Early Note. Get actionable insights from SaaS veterans like Patrick Campbell, Christoph Jans, and Corey Haynes right into your inbox. A 5-minute read every Tuesday for free. Go to earlynote.com and subscribe for free.